Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Ashley Mott. I'm the GIS Director at Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council, and this is the Regional GIS Data and Technology Group. I'm joined today by Allison Bednar, who's our GIS analyst, and I overstuffed the agenda, so we should get started here. So if you would, please drop your name and affiliation in the chat. That helps us to do some reporting. And kind of excitingly, this group is now grant funded by FDEP. So by you dropping your name and organization in the chat, that just helps me stay up on our responsibilities with them. And I'm just going to pass the mic over to Allison here after this slide so she can talk about some GIS Day events that we know about. And Allison also is going to ask you some questions so we can fill out our newsletter that we're going to send you all in a couple days. And then we'll get right into the lightning talks. We have 5 speakers, so we got to get going here in a second, and if we have time, we could talk about group goals for 2026. Allison, you want to take it?
Yep. Good morning, everyone. So next week there is the GeoFlow Summit in Largo. Last year it was in Plant City. I know a lot of us on the call joined. So I hope to see some of you there. There's a lot of exciting topics on the agenda. They have Map Florida 2025, so that is the submission for the GeoFlow Summit. It's due November 11th. You can see the prompt on their website. And then we're just asking about any GIS Day events. The only ones we've really been able to find that are public have been the USF Libraries GIS Day. It's the week of the 17th. I believe it's on the 19th or the 18th. So if you have any public GIS Day events that you'd like to share in the chat, that would be great. I'd like to include any of the active GIS Day events in our newsletter that's going to go out next Tuesday on Veterans Day. So if you have anything to share, please feel free to drop in the chat. You can go to the next slide, Ashley. And then with that being said, our newsletter. So please drop in the chat, as I said, any public GIS Day events, any GIS job openings. I've been scouring the internet, but I haven't found very many current GIS job openings for any of your public positions. So please no private firms drop GIS jobs, just keep it to public. And anything that you want to spotlight in our newsletter. So any data you're proud of, any projects that you finished that you're proud of and would like to share with the group, we'd love to know about it and include in the newsletter. The newsletter is also going to include the YouTube recording of the meeting, a brief overview, and some other spotlights that we have to include. We're going to send it out next Tuesday. So please feel free to email me or Ashley if there's anything you'd like to include. And thank you all.
Thanks, Allison. All right, so we're going to jump into lightning talks now, and this is something I'm really excited about because for those of you that have been a part of the group since the beginning, we've just had folks from state and federal agencies speak, and also SwiftMud. But this is a chance to get to know more of our regional partners and our cities and counties. So I'm just going to hand it off to each speaker and allow them to introduce themselves. So Renee, you want to start us off?
I certainly can. Try to share screens. This we didn't test. Let's see, share. Are you guys seeing the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, thank you, Ashley, for having me speak. I always like the opportunity.
Sorry, now I see your team's view.
Oh, the whole view?
I can see your PowerPoint now.
Okay, got it. All right, so we'll just have to, you kind of shift me over here a little bit. But yes, my name is Renee Duffey. I work for Pinellas County Emergency Management. I'm their GIS analyst. And I am also the GIS unit lead when we activate for an incident. And today we've got a ton of apps, emergency management related and otherwise at the county. And I'm just going to showcase one of them today. Just real quickly, I wanted to talk about our critical facility viewer and kind of the origin story of that and how it came to be and how we use it. And hopefully I'm gonna try to do a live demo here. It's a scary thing in presentations, but we'll see how it goes. Um, so what we kind of had when I first started at the county, we had, and I think a lot of GIS folks can sympathize with this. You develop these apps and they end up being kind of the kitchen sink of everything, right? You get more requests, you keep adding to it and adding to it, and they expand until they're almost a little cumbersome to maintain. They're cumbersome on the user side. And so that's what we kind of had as our situational awareness viewer for emergency management. Was an application that had just kind of was bursting at the seams as far as everything we were trying to pack into it. And so what I kind of I reevaluated what our needs were as far as looking at impacts and risks to critical facilities during an incident. And the approach that I ended up going with was kind of the dashboard of dashboards, right? So kind of simplifying this information into a more palatable or manageable application. So kind of the purpose and the basic needs for the critical facility viewer. We needed a interactive, something GIS based for viewing our critical facilities as well as our field operation sites. And then something that was kind of mappy with summaries and totals that would allow us to compare different storm scenarios and their impacts. And it had to be an efficient solution, right? So we had to figure out a way to bring in a lot of different types of information in kind of a more efficient type application. And then the big part of that was to make this as accessible as possible. Again, I'm with my GIS people, so you guys get it. Sharing is not always the easiest thing in the Esri environment. So I needed a way that we could really make it as accessible to the people as possible. Emergency management is a unique I'll say opportunity because we have a lot of different stakeholders, right? Many of them are not GIS people. So I'm working with people that don't have our GIS accounts. And so what we ended up doing is it's the kind of security by obscurity approach. So we made the application public, but it's not advertised anywhere. And it doesn't have any data in there that aren't publicly available anyway. So, and that really has kind of led to the success of the application, just because it is accessible, right? It's the one thing that people can really get to and rely on. It'll open without a login. There is a login on it right now, but if you just kind of ignore it, and I'll walk you through that. But I'm going to switch tabs here. Are you guys switching with me on the tabs?
Yes.
Okay, so just a kind of intro, this is where I have every kind of user related to emergency management during an incident start, right? We've got a jump page. This is all of our applications for EM. And then we have our critical facility viewer, and hopefully it behaves. I tried to cache as much as possible because there's a lot going on in this. So this is our viewer. We use this for Blue Sky, so Blue Sky 365. And then we also use this kind of leading up to and during an emergency event. Mostly so far that's been tropical storms, hurricanes. But it will allow users to kind of quickly take a look at our critical facility assets. You can drill down by municipality. You can look at which facilities are in certain evacuation zones. And then during an incident, we also add a component, a filter here, so that you can view facilities that are impacted by the predicted storm surge. So our kind of operational data set for that is the P surge from the Hurricane Center. And so you can look at which facilities are potentially impacted at each one of those forecasts, which is kind of nice. And it'll give you the count of each facilities that are impacted by or within meet those kind of filter requirements or criteria, population, number of households, and then you can drill down to the individual facilities, mobile home parks, and all of these data you can export to a table. So that's been really useful for a lot of our users. They can actually create an Excel file of that list. Field sites, these are like pod staging areas, debris sites. A lot of them are kind of pop-up sites during an incident. So we have a place to view all of those. And then finally, we have the meow section of the dashboard. So I have some of these pre-canned scenarios up here because this part of the dashboard can be a little boggy because of just how much information is going on the kind of on the back end of this. And so one of the things that we have been doing as a county is when the storm is kind of approaching, we get more detailed information on that forecast, the direction the storm's coming from or going to, the speed of the storm, and obviously the category, the size of that storm. So instead of just looking at a category storm, we can get a little bit more detailed in our risk assessment. And that allows us to make better decisions as far as evacuations, having healthcare facilities evacuate. We really avoid trying to over evacuate, right? Just as much as we try to avoid under evacuating. And so this, looking at those kind of individual storm scenarios, the direction, and then also the speed gives us the ability to do that. And then in kind of conducting that analysis, we realize that, not obviously not every storm is the same. We knew that. But for a lot of these directionals, they call them the meow. That's the name of the product that the Hurricane Center produces. But with each one of these scenarios, our worst case scenario is really only a few directions. So if we're getting a, kind of a direct hit, a storm in that northeast direction, that's going to look like our typical, for example, in the scenario that I've got pulled up right now, this is on the left there, you have a northeast storm, category 2 coming at 15 miles per hour. And that's our standard. That's the worst case scenario. We'd order level B evacuation. And then you can kind of see the number of facilities that would be impacted at that scenario. But the same category storm, same speed coming across the state, going in that northwest direction, and you see the impacts are very different. Our situation looks a lot different as far as evacuating. There's very few facilities that we would have to evacuate at that direction, and so this tool gives you that kind of easy, really quick comparison. Every time we get a new forecast, we can kind of run this. And prior to having a tool like this, we were having to generate feature services every time those scenarios or forecasts were released. And so this really does save a lot of time by kind of enabling that comparison. And then that's pretty much the viewer. I'm gonna, if I don't know, April usually helps me out and drops the link in the chat. April is my colleague at the county. She helps me out. I am supported by a fleet of really, really great GIS support in our Aegis group. Some of them are on the call today, and maybe April can share that link for y'all, so that you can check out the the facility viewer. Just ignore the login. You can still access everything. If you bypass, ignore the login on that. But let me go back to the presentation and kind of just briefly talk about the next gen. So what we're looking at for 2026 is to build out kind of more of our real-time forecasting a bit. And so there's two parts to that. We have the ability to access real-time information now. But the other side of that is we really want kind of that alert and notification system, like, hey, this facility could potentially be impacted. Let them know, look at what their trigger points are, right? So are they going to evacuate if storm surge is going to exceed 6 feet? If it's a wastewater treatment plant, turns out they shut down. They will power down a lot of those facilities. And, knowing and compiling all of those thresholds in a common place is a big part of making that kind of real-time forecasting and alert system work. So our goal is to have the ability to have this kind of inventory of all of those trigger points. And that could be wind as well. The sheriff's got to come off the roads if wind is greater than, I think, 45 miles per hour. They can't drive in anything deeper than 7 feet, right? So we can start kind of making those real-time decisions as forecasts are being released based on those trigger points, those actual critical thresholds for assets and also operations too. So we're looking at different kind of solutions for that. Esri has a watch center solution. We're looking at different kind of view events type servers to handle real-time information and alerting. And so yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I think as far as situational awareness during an incident, it's going to get us that kind of next level. We're really great at saying how bad it's going to be, but this is a tool for us to say, okay, here's how bad it's going to be. This is what we need to do, right? This is our next step. It operationalizes that critical facility viewer in its current state. So that's the plan.
Awesome, Renee. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Does anybody have a quick question for Renee before we move on?
I have one. Renee, how often, or I guess, how hard is it to upkeep? Like, are you updating, like if you get new field sites or different critical facility updates, how often are you going in and updating?
That's a good question. I do an annual update process, and I reach out to all of our municipal partners and ask, and some of you are probably on the call today. I kind of bug everybody for any data updates that they have. And then for this 2026 season, they'll also get the request to add any of those critical thresholds so that we can add that to our database. So it's an annual update. Some of those data we manage kind of in emergency management, the healthcare facilities, for example. So we keep those pretty up to date. But it's an annual process, and it takes an effort, but this data set can serve other purposes too, right? We do vulnerability assessments for resiliency and sustainability and stuff like that. So we're working on kind of, everybody, there's different critical facility data sets out there, right? So kind of making that a single cohesive one version data set is something that we're working on too. But it's not terrible, but it takes a little bit of time.
I got it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Renee, it's like a little VA viewer, vulnerability assessment viewer. in a way. All right, anybody else before we move on to Cindy from Citrus County? You can always ask questions in the chat too of Renee, I'm sure. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. All right, so Cindy, can you take over sharing at this point? I don't know if Renee.
Yeah, let me try. Let's see, yes. And I'm gonna go over to the screen. Let me know if you can see, that.
Yes, we can see it, Cindy. And please introduce yourself if you would.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Cynthia Skelhorn. I'm with Citrus County. I've been with Citrus for about 7 years now. And then prior to that, my background in GIS is really more from a landscape and urban planning position. I studied University of Manchester and did my PhD there, looking at landscaping and the sort of relief from urban heat island conditions that provides, and then continued doing some research in the Middle East, and then eventually made my way back to Florida, which is my home state. So that's really my background is more sort of the landscape urban planning, but I've been here as director, as I said, for about 7 years. So one of our roles here, I'm going to introduce to you today just our substantial damage assessment tool. This is something that we set up for Hurricane Idalia in response to that. So the background to that is just that, hang on just a sec. Let me see if it'll switch slides here for me. Sorry, it's switching for me, but I don't see it switching on your screen.
Yeah, we're still at the intro slide, Cindy.
All right, let me turn it off and try to go back. All right. So for us, one of our responsibilities, so in Citrus County, the GIS is very centralized. So we manage data for all of the utility, for the emergency operations. So we provide like all of the data for the CAD system, the addresses and street center lines and fire beats, all of that sort of data. So we really, in a way, I think that's very fortunate because we have a good grasp of all the data that's available to us for the county. And so one of our responsibilities during storm events is that we provide support to both the building division and then the EOC. And for the building division, their responsibility is to go out after the storms and do both the preliminary damage assessment and then the substantial damage assessment when that is needed. So our mission here is really just to increase the efficiency of these other county departments and divisions and any sort of related entities, that we interact with by providing them good data, by providing them applications when they need certain applications to be able to make their job more efficient. So for this one, we were really just trying to make their lives easier by providing them the tools to do their job with the damage assessment data collection. So again, let's see if this is going to, it's doing it again. It's still not changing on your screen. So
Yeah, we can look at the messy view too if we don't care.
okay, yeah, I might have to do that. Let me just hang on a sec. I'm gonna go back and right. Okay, I think I'll just take you through, like, rather than trying to do the slides, I'll just try to show you what's, on this other screen. So I know a lot of you are probably familiar with the Survey 123 applications. They're pretty easy, I think once you've done, a couple of them, they're pretty easy to get to grips with. And so what really made this project unique for us was just the fact that they came to us on very short notice. They had already done all the preliminary damage assessment using another app that we had created for them. But then for Adalia, we had substantial damage, so they needed to quickly get some tools together to go out and do that damage assessment. So really what happened then was they said, we've got 1 or 2 days, we're going to have some state assistance, some field collectors that will be provided to us to come and do this, but we really need everything set up within a day or two. And so for us, we had to just move very quickly and try to get this survey set up. So using the survey 123, we were able to do that. And you'll see over here, like this is sort of the nice front end part of it. And then, but behind the scenes, you've got all of this going on. If any of you have ever done this sort of app, there's an Excel sheet behind the scenes where you do a lot of sort of more, just some HTML, a little bit of coding in a few places to try to make everything work together really nicely and easily. So we came up with that. We got it all pulled together within probably like a day or two at the most. And then we were able to send those field collectors out to gather the data. We had planned for 3 days. I think we had about 40 surveys that needed to be completed, all over on the western side of the county. And we had planned for like sort of 2 teams, maybe 3 days to do the substantial damage assessments. But because we went in and preloaded the points for them, so they knew exactly which locations they needed to go to, they were able to get everything done within a single day. And then I think the other part to point out about it, let me just see if I can pull up the map here. Pull that over. So this is kind of our, in ArcGIS Online, the points that were collected. Normally we would make a dashboard for something like this, like for our preliminary damage assessment, we do have a dashboard for that one that, obviously makes it look a lot more presentable, like the dashboard that Renee was just showing. It makes it more sensible to those emergency managers where they can look and see totals for like the total amount of damage. They can see the types of homes that were damaged. But for this one, because it was a smaller survey, we didn't, and because of the time pressures that we were under, we didn't actually go and set up the dashboard part of it. But you can see, as these things were being collected, it was just a matter of them selecting the point in the field app and then being able to fill out the survey there and then and take pictures. They were able to take photos and upload photos for all of those. And I think just to kind of summarize, let's see if I can get up my final slide here. We'll go back to that. Nope, that's not the final slide. This is not cooperating. What I wanted to say just to wrap up is just that the final I think what made it a good project was that, like I said, we were able to set it up very quickly. Everything got completed within a single day for the collection. And then also we had some really inexpensive tablets that we used. We had a group of these little like Amazon Fire tablets that were, I think, $500 for like 10 tablets. And we were able to use those, and it didn't really matter whether or not they were connected. Like we set them up in the morning. They could go out and do their collection. And then even if they didn't have a Wi-Fi connection, they would just synchronize their data back at the very end of the day when they came back to the office or whenever they got somewhere where they had Wi-Fi connection. So the whole project was just, it was very quick. It was very efficient and very inexpensive. I think were sort of the 3 main points of it that made it a nice project. So thank you. I am not sure about the technical difficulties here with presenting, but I thank you for, just looking at the project, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Yeah, Cindy, I think it reflects more on PowerPoint within Zoom rather than, it's like everybody in GIS can do all these amazing things, but somehow Zoom can't present
Somehow.
PowerPoint easily.
Yeah, it's just not picking up that, like, it's changing on my, presenter screen, but it's not changing over there.
Yeah, I wanted to mention, Cindy, just like the turnaround time and the efficiency and cost of this project. This was our organization, TBRPC, we have a resiliency summit every year, and a couple years ago, this was what we call our Future of the Region awards. So this was a recipient of that award just because of like the amazing way in which you all turned this around and were able to provide this kind of information so quickly. So thank you for this presentation.
And thank you. Like I said, I know a lot of people have used Survey 123, and you're probably, it's not that difficult to get to grips with, but it was just the timing and just the efficiency and how cost effective it was, I think, were the main highlights for me.
Yes. Does anybody have any questions for Cindy? All right. Okay, we'll hop over to Marcus is next. And Marcus, once you take control of the screen, could you please introduce yourself?
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Marcus Beck. I'm the senior scientist at the Tampa Bay Estuary program. Been here about 6 going on 7 years, which is hard to believe. But I'm the senior scientist, and I generally oversee a lot of the research projects that our program pursues, mostly through our partners. But most of my daily job is sitting on a computer, drinking coffee, and coding, which is my comfort zone. So this is not a GIS specific talk or presentation, but there's a lot of overlap with, I guess, data science and open science and how we use different data streams to support some of the decision making around our program. So I will make this hopefully brief and give you a whirlwind tour of just our approach and the way we think about developing reporting products for Bay Health and all the things we care about as a program. So real quickly, we're one of 28 similar programs around the country that are part of the National Estuary Program. Each one is slightly different, but the mission is generally the same. Basically, it's kind of like a place-based solution to support science-based decisions for the management of what are called estuaries of national significance. So Tampa Bay is one of those. We're a small program. We have 9 employees, so we really rely on our partners to help us fulfill our mission, and that's really exactly what we're meant to do. We're sort of facilitators of knowledge dissemination. We kind of sit in the middle here. This is our org chart. I'm not going to go over all this, but we sit in the middle here and convene various committees that are composed of our partners. We have a nitrogen management consortium, and then our boards that we respond to. So we facilitate a lot of different conversations, and to support that, it's my job to kind of create a lot of different report cards that speak to status and trends of various resources, because you can't make decisions if you don't know what the state of the resource is. So this is what I do mostly is generating these things. And there was a lot of, the program's been around for over 30 years. A lot of great science preceded me, and it was my job to kind of operationalize a lot of that science in a way that we can put forth the information in a meaningful and as rapid fashion as possible to support these decisions. So one of the first things I did was develop this open source R package to operationalize the data synthesis workflow. So this TBEP tools R package does a lot of this. I've been working on this since 2018, I think, continually being developed to improve the efficiency of how the data is extracted, but also building in new indicators as they're developed to fill information gaps. Being open source, this is freely available on code sharing platforms like GitHub, so you can look at this on your own. And it really, if you have the interest, dive into the code if you really want to get a sense of how this is done. But more importantly, this is the workhorse for all of our report cards and dashboards. So it's the core piece of software that not only pulls in the data for us, but distills it into those graphics that I just showed. What it kind of looks like I said, there's a lot of great science that preceded me and my existence in this program. This is a grainy scanned PDF document that really defined sort of the structure of how we report on water quality. And so this has been going on for 25 years of how this was done, but I wanted to really improve the process for getting out the information in as rapid a fashion as possible. And so TBP tools basically codified a lot of the workflows in these old historic documents, pulls in partner data that supports it, create shiny dashboards. And if you look underneath the hood, like I said, if you want to dive into the nitty gritty, all the code is there on GitHub. And that then supports the generation of reporting tools that this is our water quality report card that, again, has been a sort of a flagship product that we've produced for many years, but up until about 5 or 6 years ago, it's now created with this open source workflow. So really, each year this is developed. I more or less just push a button, and this updated report card is produced using the workflows that we've developed. This is another way of kind of looking at how we operationalize this, really more getting at the automation aspect of it. And so I have this workflow that I think demonstrates how we're leveraging these open source tools. So this is me at my computer drinking coffee. I'm developing the things, pushing them to GitHub. And GitHub is a great code sharing platform in and of itself, but it does let you automate a lot of the workflows once they're created. So there's this thing called GitHub Actions that we can set up jobs on a schedule that once you have the workflow created, it can run custom scripts for you. And so what it's doing is once I set it up, it's using functions and tools within this R package to tap into a stable data source from our partners. It's running a bunch of other functions to synthesize that, generating a document or a dashboard. And if everything works great, I get this little badge that tells me it's working, and then it's pushed automatically to our website. This is great. Most of the time it works. Oftentimes it doesn't. And so since it runs on a schedule, I basically get a notification, an email saying something broke, and then I intervene. So really, the value of that is that when it works. I can do something else, spend my time focusing on other things, and I only get involved when I have to. And usually it breaks because of, say, the format of the input data has changed, and that's something that is, I can't plan for, but it's inevitable when you develop these types of products. So point being, it's automated 90% of the time. I don't have to intervene. I only get involved when I have to. We also, the nice thing about this is we, because it's integrated with these sort of document preparation systems that are also open source, if you go to our website, you'll see things that look like, plain text that report on status and trends of the resource. But what's happening on the back end is we've created these things with coding and these automated workflows where we can set up like placeholder code that generates relevant information on a rolling basis, where like each year we want to update our State of the Bay report. When this document is generated on the fly, and we'll pull in the most relevant information for that year. So here's like 2021, there's a placeholder for the current year. And then there's a bit of code here that will actually report on like what the outcome was for that particular year. So again, all this is automated. For the most part, it's leveraging tools on the back end that I've spent the last couple of years developing, and it works more or less, automatically until something breaks. These are some of the resources I just want to point you to. I'll quickly just say this is sort of the landing page for a lot of our products, tbep.org /our work /dataviz. There's different cards that speak to a lot of our products here. For example, if you were to go to our water quality report card and get more information about that, you can click on the actual report card that I mentioned. There's a dashboard supporting that and an explanation of that workflow I just kind of went over. And if you want to get into the nitty gritty, you can go to the source code and see how that is generated. So there's different levels of intersection you can get into depending on who, your interest or your level of comfort engaging with this information. This was built 2 days ago on an automated build. I think this water quality dashboard, or actually the report card that uses data from EPC Hillsborough County, they pushed out their September data set a couple days ago, and then this pulled that in and kind of built a provisional report card for this year, pulling in all the data up through September. So we're looking good so far. So that's all I got. And that's, again, quick overview of how we approach these things. We're an open source camp, which we like for a number of different reasons. And love to talk more about this, but lightning talk, so I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Marcus. Yeah, I had a question off the bat. You know that I was such a big fan of that open science workshop that you did at the SwiftMud offices.
Mhm.
Are you planning on doing one of those in the future?
Yeah, maybe. It depends if there's an interest of that. I try to do at least 1 or 2 workshops a year. I'm actually giving one next week, Intro to R, at the Coastal Estuary and Research Federation meeting in Richmond. So that's checking the box for this year. But if there's an interest in open science as a general tool that can help you do better science in less time, as the mantra goes, we could think about maybe doing something like that for next year. If you go to our GitHub, you can see materials from past workshops. OS workshop. This is the workshop in question that I think Ashley's talking about. All that stuff still lives online. It'll be there in perpetuity as long as the internet exists. So you can always go back to it. But yeah, if there's training or interest in training in this in the future, happy to have that combo.
Cool. Does anybody else have a question for Marcus? We can use the chat, certainly. I saw Cindy, you had a question in the chat from somebody in the audience. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. All right, I will move on to Nicole then. Nicole's from Forward Pinellas. And Nicole, once you take the sharing over, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, you all can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So, hi everybody. My name is Nicole Galasso. I am a principal planner with Forward Pinellas. For anyone who may not be as familiar with who we are at Forward Pinellas, I have this story map that I can share with you all in the chat. But here at Forward Pinellas, we serve as Pinellas County's land use and transportation agency. So we serve all 25 local governments in our county to help them, facilitate their planning processes, provide local technical assistance, and then, of course, in our role as the MPO, help to plan and prioritize and implement transportation improvement projects throughout the county. So I'll drop this link in the chat after. But I want to get into the work that we've been doing in ArcGIS Urban. So I'll start by just giving a little snapshot. I should also say we have actually implemented this tool for 2 different communities, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to focus on Indian Rocks Beach. So Indian Rocks Beach is a small beach community in Pinellas County. As you can see here, just from these quick stats, higher than average household income, higher than average home value. And if you take a look at some of these pictures down here, you'll see there's, despite it being a coastal community that does want to prioritize green space, they have some of that in their residential areas, but their business areas tend to be a sea of surface parking, if I'm being frank. And so before I get into the model, I just kind of want to explain some background as to how we got into this work. So Forward Pinellas worked with the city of Indian Rocks Beach back in like 2018 to 2020 to help them prepare their Gulf Boulevard visioning study. And in that study, some of the key themes that came out of the community engagement included maintaining their community character. They want to attract new businesses other than short-term rentals, which I'm sure, as you can imagine, is an issue facing especially our beach, more tourist-driven communities. And also provide property owners with the opportunity for multiple revenue generating streams. So we helped them kind of put that visioning study together back in 2020. And then towards the end of last year and through this year, the city engaged us to help implement some of those goals, namely through developing a mixed use bonus option for their code to accomplish just that, provide property owners with opportunities to develop maybe some residential units on their property. So we started working on proposing new zoning regulations, and then we decided to use ArcGIS Urban to help us work through that work. So the 2 properties that we focused on at first were in 2 different zoning districts, and I'll just give a really brief overview in the model. But so to help us visualize how that proposed mixed use bonus could play out, we started by modeling just on these 2 parcels. And the reason these 2 were selected is because they're owned by individuals who've operated businesses in the community for decades. And the community wanted to, I guess, if they want mixed use, they don't want it to be, large retail or big kind of national developers who come in. So having the support of these 2 property owners to drive this work really helped make the case that this is coming from the community. It's not necessarily market or developer driven. And these are 2 individuals who want to be able to stay in the city long term. So I don't think I mentioned this, but I came on to Forward Pinellas about 8 months ago, and I had never opened ArcGIS Urban in my life. I had only used Arc Pro before that. So, and now in the past 2 weeks, I've probably given about 5 different presentations and demos on this work. So it's been really cool to take a step back and just see how far we've come in such a short amount of time. So what we're looking at now is actually the urban model. You can see all these white buildings are our county's existing 3D buildings layer. And the way that Arc Urban works is it's driven off of parcel data and zoning data. So we have an amazing Aegis team here, a great property appraiser's office, and none of this would be possible without having all of that data already digitized in a spatial format so that we could easily load it into the model. So when you work in Arc Urban, of course, you start with defining your zoning districts. And what we did in Indian Rocks Beach is we started with their existing regulatory framework. And as you can see, it pulls in the zoning for the whole city and has those parameters that are associated with that zoning district readily available for the user. And then after pulling in that information, we started developing parcels with hypothetical developments to be able to see how these properties or different zoning districts could perform under a mixed use bonus, or how they perform with a no change scenario, so their existing zoning. So now what you're seeing are some of the hypothetical developments that we put into the model to be able to assess their various parameters and how they would maximize entitlements, how that would look in the context of the surrounding area. So having this in a 3D environment really helps when it comes to that goal of maintaining community character and being aware of surrounding context. You can kind of drop yourself in and start to imagine, okay, what would this look like? What would this development scenario look like in real life if I was driving down Gulf Boulevard? And then one of the other really cool things that we did, and this was a custom kind of tool that we had to put in here, is we developed custom metrics, which are calculations that are pulling from zoning and parcel data to give you a quick snapshot of whatever metric you want to assess for your community. So you could do utility impacts, traffic impacts. We chose to focus on parking and impervious surface ratio, probably for obvious reasons, because those are two big concerns in many of our communities, but particularly our beach communities. So we started in Arc Urban and we built these 3 scenarios that you see here. And then we worked with our Esri consultant, our product manager, to think through how do we present this information to the city, to their planning and zoning board and their commission, as well as the public, in a way that they can quickly and easily compare between the 3 scenarios. So we put it all in Experience Builder, and have our 5 different representative parcels. We ended up adding a few towards the end, and we connected this all with the urban model, so that now, instead of having to click through those 3 different scenarios that I was showing previously, we can see them side by side, and we see the metrics immediately generate. And when we presented this to their planning and zoning board, this was something that really helped them start to make more informed decisions between the 3 scenarios, and allowed us to get some really clear guidance on next steps and what they'd want to move forward with. I know we're kind of running out of time, but the last thing that I'll show is that we worked with our Esri consultant to also integrate this with City Engine, so we could put some realistic facade on those building massing models. And what we found with this is this really helped generate public comment in those meetings where we presented. Before, I think the public was a little like, whoa, what is all this that these people are showing us? And, what are these Lego blocks that you want to put in our community? And then, we popped up the City Engine visualizations, and it was kind of incredible to see members of the public get up and really start to share their opinion, and how they could see themselves, in, the second scenario development as opposed to the first, and how it's something that they would want to see in their community. So, I'm happy to share any of this with anyone who's interested, but I want to make sure we leave some time for the last speaker. So thank you all.
Thank you, Nicole. Yeah, I want to get to Sarah here in a second, but I'm kind of with the community on that, like seeing that, like the building skins with City Engine is so helpful in visualizing it. Sarah, before you start, and if anybody needs to connect with any of the speakers, I can help facilitate that, or if the speakers can drop their emails in the chat. Shannon Cox just wanted me to make sure that all of you have the registration link for GeoFlow, so I'll drop that in the chat. And Sarah, take it away when you're ready.
Hey everyone, I'm Sarah Vitale, the Director of Civic Technology with TBRPC. I want to share some of the work we've been doing lately with GIS, particularly 3D. So we do some 3D visualization for different types of projects, for project visioning, digital storytelling, and making interactive and immersive tools. And we have our toolbox listed here. These are some of the tools that we're using. You just heard about City Engine and our GIS Urban, but we also use SketchUp a lot, Twinmotion and Unreal Engine from Epic Games, NVIDIA Omniverse a little bit, Cesium JS a little bit, and then in situ AR, which is an augmented reality platform. And we are experimenting in 3D and developing different products. The first one I want to develop is a guided workflow tutorial. So how you can get from the data to the interactive, immersive 3D visualization, or in this case, a 3D game, a game environment. So we're also testing the strengths and limitations of visualizing water planes in Twinmotion and Unreal Engine. So just moving the Z value up and down and being able to show flooding in that way, which is less realistic, but still compelling, and it works in some scenarios. It's a lot simpler versus using Unreal Engine to do a fluid animation with its physics simulator. And then number 3 is visualizing on-site flooding in augmented reality. So I just want to say this up front, that there are a lot of challenges, and this workflow is intense. I'm trying to simplify it in this tutorial we're developing, but I want to make sure you all understand that these are just for conceptual planning purposes, these types of visualizations for flooding, and anything that you'd want to actually build, we need an engineer to approve of. But this is really helpful when it comes to communicating concepts and ideas, and just spinning something up quickly to show the community in a more compelling way. This is something I've developed in, let's see, okay. The idea here is that, we don't want to have to experience a hurricane. Why can't we visualize something like this before it ever happens, and incorporate that into some of our hurricane preparedness materials? So we started testing wind, flood, and rain with SketchUp, Twinmotion, and Unreal. So that's Anywhere Florida Hurricane Impacts demo. But I want to walk you all through real quickly a project I'm working on with the city of Port Richey. This is one of their parks, Olsner Park. And some of the steps when you get started here is you want to collect and process the terrain data in GIS and or Blender. You got to do some converting from the units and the coordinate reference system. So I'll write all that down in the tutorial, so it's nice and easy step by step. But you have to manipulate this data to be able to get it into these different other products. Then I work in SketchUp, so I develop the concepts in SketchUp, either developing a custom model by sketching or sourcing models from lots of different asset areas where they offer free modeling tools and assets to import to your models. And I learned recently that this is called kit bashing, where you will create your own new scene by using a bunch of little models to create one giant model. It's called kit bashing. So then after that, you go from SketchUp to Twinmotion, and there's this data smith for live editing where you're able to have on one screen the SketchUp model, on the other Twinmotion. And as you make changes in SketchUp, Twinmotion will update. And you can think of Twinmotion as basically the decorator or the animator tool for your SketchUp. So things start to go from real sketchy and conceptual, which is useful in some circumstances, to more of actual nicer looking visualization that has some animation that people can start to interact with a little bit more compelling way. So yeah, I made this in just like 20 minutes, and it's easy to just drag and drop all the trees, and it's building off of your SketchUp and adding in nicer materials, bringing in people, cars. So it's a really fun product. I like that one a lot. Twinmotion. And then I want to show you just quickly how you go from now Twinmotion, which is a little bit more realistic, to now a very more realistic Unreal Engine, and how you would use Cesium, the 3D tiles, to develop the context. So this is Unreal Engine. And I'm over here. I won't go too fast, hopefully. Let's see. Ah! It wants me to use my Xbox controller, but I don't want to do that. But it is fun when you do that. Okay, so here's our park. And I brought it into Unreal Engine with Cesium because in Twinmotion, you don't get all of the context, right? And in Cesium, you have the entire world. Will you stop? Okay, sorry, that was distracting. You have the entire world at your disposal in your 3D model. You can go to any city on the planet and get georeferenced terrain instantly, and you can incorporate all your models on top of that to be able to show really what it would be like to walk around and experience the site. And as you all know, with the technology and how fast it's advancing, this Google Map imagery is going to look very realistic in a couple of years. So it's exciting to have this environment that you're able to kind of play around with. And what I call this, it's kind of like a digital twin, but I call it a 3D sandbox because I don't have any live sensor data in here. But if I were to incorporate APIs and pull in live weather, live flood data, that's where it can become more like a digital twin, live, weather, I think I said, and time of day. So yeah, so I'm working on this project, and last but not least, if I have time, I wanted to show what the next level of this could look like, because we're going from more simplified modeling to fluid animation modeling. So in Cesium, I can pull the plane and go up and down real simply, but there's also other tools with Cesium and Unreal Engine where you start to really be able to do a lot of different things. Like you can develop a simulation for a community where you're able to explain all about flooding at this level of detail, and drive a car or ride a bike and really get to walk through the community. So the sky's the limit with Unreal. There's some technical technical challenges at the beginning just to wrap your head around it, but our goal is to help make these tools more accessible for our members. So I'm happy to share them. And lastly, I just wanted to mention that I'm looking for pilot test projects to do augmented reality. And this is an example of what we did last year on the beach, is showing a house with a 5-foot flood and just seeing what that looks like in augmented reality, seeing if that's a compelling way to talk about risk with communities. So that was fun, but I want to do a couple more in other places. So if you're interested, please email me right here, and I will share these slides with Ashley later. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, Sarah. Sorry we ran out of time.
It's okay.
Did anybody else catch the alligator in that first visual? It kills me every time. It was really cool to see like what you're doing next to what Nicole's doing. It's just like that 3D visualization is so awesome. And Sarah, before I just open it up to anybody else, did I hear you correctly? You're creating like a tutorial or like a workflow that others can follow to do?
Yeah, I want to make a step-by-step descript, writing it out on a website, but then also I'll go through it like a 5-minute video so I can share that with everybody on those steps.
Yeah, and maybe it's something we can steal some ideas from Marcus's open workflow site.
Yeah.
But I want to open up questions to anybody else and for any of the speakers. So sorry, I had to kind of rush us through while I overstuffed everything again. There's just so much cool stuff everybody's doing. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them, or you can ask them in the chat. Okay, I think maybe we're done. One last call for questions. Okay.
Could I do a quick question for Marcus?
Okay.
Yeah, Marcus, I just wanted to know, how did you settle on your tools, like as far as R or other open source tools that you've selected?
The simple answer is it was free.
That's a good answer. That's always a good answer.
That's a big selling point for these things, but it's
Yeah.
not the only selling point, and in my opinion, not the biggest selling point. I actually started using it back in 2007 when I started grad school. And just as a starving grad student, I ended up using it for my research and never looked back, so to speak.
Okay, okay. So very familiar and experienced with
Yeah,
the
and being
process.
open source, it comes with this much broader community of practice that makes it a very vibrant space to work in, where you have contributors from all over the globe, and that's one of my favorite things about it is as they say, there's a package for that. So if you have a
Yes.
need for something, chances are someone else has built it, and you could easily find, usually 9 times out of 10, what you need just by looking around on GitHub or Googling. So.
Nice, okay.
I have a quick question for Nicole with Board Pinellas. You mentioned that this was kind of your guys' team's first time doing like urban modeling for Indian Rocks Beach. Have you guys started any other projects with using that platform and kind of like exploring anything else besides mixed use, or is that kind of like been your primary focus recently?
Hey, Savannah. So it was my first time using ArcGIS Urban, but the team had deployed a model back in 2019 during the visioning study, but it didn't necessarily go through the typical workflow that you see in Urban that I presented, where you develop 3 different scenarios based on different sets of zoning parameters, and then kind of compare between the 3. So it was our first time, I guess, taking it that far and developing the custom metrics for parking balance and impervious surface ratio. But we also deployed a model for the North Greenwood CRA in Clearwater. And there we did explore mixed use options along their Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue corridor that they wanted to kind of revitalize and help small businesses develop. We also looked at missing middle housing opportunities, and we used parcel suitability analysis within ArcGIS Urban to identify parcels that would be appropriate for missing middle housing types, and then used the draft code that the city of Clearwater developed for the area to see if the draft code language would actually work on the ground with real site constraints and adjacent properties. And we were able to kind of have that iterative workflow and back and forth with the city before the code gets adopted, to hopefully limit the need for amendment soon after adoption, to adjust things like setbacks, front porch requirements, a lot of those typical missing middle design goals that are best practices. And in this particular area, there were some site constraints that would actually, run up against those proposed requirements. And we were able to kind of help the city work through how to give a little more flexibility so that the real goal was to just get the missing middle housing types, right? And we wanted to make sure that there weren't any barriers that were inadvertently, put into the draft code to accomplish that.
That's great. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Stolen about 10 extra minutes. All right. Think we'll stop the recording there. And like I said, if anybody needs follow-up emails or anything like that, I can provide that.